السورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الأعظم حجة الله ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب الغرباء، يا مظلوم كربلاء. السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته. السلام على من الإجابة تحت كبته. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي، يا سادتي، فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال مولانا إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. اللهم صل على محمد. ما بمكة والمدينة 20 رجلا يحبنا أهل البيت. صدق الإمام. زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. A second of your loudest salawat لتعجيل الفرج ولقضاء الحوائج ولشفاء المرضى صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. The period of Imamah, which was marked by Imam Zainul Abidin, was a period that was filled with atrocities and oppression from an ideological perspective, from a political perspective, from a social perspective, and from an economic perspective. The extent of the oppression that befell upon the Islamic Ummah from an ideological perspective can be seen through the mere fact that Imam Sajjad's appointment or bestowment of Imamah was a matter that was conducted in secrecy. Antum brothers, you look at the seerah, or you look at the history of every one of the Imams, the three Imams that preceded Imam Zainul Abidin, you will see that the bestowment and the endowment of Imamah, the appointment of Imamah as a position, as a ceremony, was one that was conducted publicly. From the time of Rasulullah, with the appointment of Amirul Mu'mineen at Eidul Ghadir, this ceremony of appointing Amirul Mu'mineen as the Imam, the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, occurred in a place called Khum, in the presence of 70,000 people. But there was no doubt in the minds of the people as to whether there is a successor after Rasulullah or no. The appointment of Amir al-Mu'mineen was public. What the people decided to do after is a different situation. But there were no two people. From the time of Eidul Ghadir to the time of the Istishhad of Rasulullah, there were no two people within the Ummah of Rasulullah. If you were to ask them, they would dispute over who is the appointed Khalif Lola. Number one, appointment of Amir al-Mu'mineen was a public affair. You go on to the time of the imamate of Imam al-Hasan, when Ibn Muljim al-La'in strikes Amir al-Mu'mineen while he is in the mihrab during his salah. You find that when Amir al-Mu'mineen was brought back to his home, during the last hours of his blessed life, Amir al-Mu'mineen appoints Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba as his successor and as the Imam over the entire Ummah in the presence of his family members and the most closest of his companions. Furthermore, when Amir al-Mu'mineen, his soul raises towards the heaven or is raised towards the heaven on the 21st day of Shahrul Ramadan, you find that Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba goes into Masjid al-Kufa and delivers a khutbah inviting the people towards his bay'ah. The imamate of Imam al-Hassan, the bestowment of imamah over him, or his appointment as the imam, was not an issue of ambiguity. There was no two people who were confused about the issue. La, it was a public affair. You see, when Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba was martyred and poisoned by the doings of Muawiyah al-La'in through Ju'dah, you find Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, same affair. On his deathbed, he appoints Sayyid al-Shuhada as the Imam, Imam al-Husein, the successor after him. And there were no two people in Medina who disputed over the fact that divine leadership, imamate, belongs to Imam al-Husayn. Why Imam al-Husayn did not claim his right from Muawiyah is a different issue. But even the people of Hijaz and within the Islamic Ummah, after the sulh of Imam Hassan with Muawiyah, were fully aware of the fact that divine leadership rests with Imam Hassan, not with Muawiyah. There was no discrepancy when it came to finding out who the Imam is of the present time. There was no secrecy in the appointment of the Imam, whether it was Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Mujtaba, or Sayyid al-Shuhada. But come to Imam Zainul Abidin. Under what circumstances was Imam Zainul Abidin appointed and made the Khalifa or the Imam or the successor of Sayyid al-Shuhada? There were no 70,000 people like during the time of his grandfather where they came and they gave bay'ah. During Ghadir, even the Munafiqeen came and said, Bakhin, Bakhin, Yabna Abi Talib. At least they hugged Amir al-Mu'mineen, even though they had nifaq in their heart. But come and see 61 AH, under which circumstances does Imam al-Husein bestow Imam Sajjad with the imamah? The tradition tells us, on the day of Ashura, Imam al-Sajjad sits together with Sayyid al-Shuhada. They are surrounded by mutilated and decapitated bodies of their family members and their ashab. In this environment where the enemies are shouting and beating the drums of war, surrounding the tents with their horses, in the presence of women wailing, in the presence of children crying out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Sayyid al-Shuhada sits in front of Imam Zainul Abidin and appoints him as his successor or as the Imam after him. He looks at Imam Sajjad and he says to him, Bunayya, Anta al-Khalifatu min ba'di. He looks at Imam Sajjad, and the tradition says he hugged Imam Sajjad. Imam Sajjad in a state of sickness. Imam al-Husayn's face and clothes covered in blood. But tonight is a night of musibah throughout the lecture. The poet says, I don't know which blood to weep my tears for. The blood that was there on the shirt of Sayyid al-Shuhada. He says, I don't know which blood to weep for. Perhaps these are the blood stains of Ali al-Akbar when the Imam pulled out the dagger or the spear from his chest. Perhaps this is the remaining of the blood from the arms of Abbas when Sayyid al-Shuhada hugged him. Lo, is it the blood of Ali al-Asghar Abdullah al-Radi when he was martyred? The poet says, I don't know. But Imam al-Husayn in these blood-stained clothes hugs Imam al-Sajjad and he says to him, Ya Bunayya, Anta al-Khalifatu min ba'di. You are the Khalifa after me. Wa anta waliyul Shi'ah. Or anta wali'u Shi'ati. You are the master of my Shi'as. Wa anta al-Qa'imu bi'awamirid-din. وَأَنْتَ الْهَادِي إِلَى صِرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. In these fearful and gruesome conditions, Imam al-Sajjad or Imam Sayyid al-Shuhada appoints Imam Zainul Abidin as his successor and designates him with the responsibilities of Imamah. The Maktal tells us, فَأَوْسَى بِهِ or فَأَوْسَى إِلَيْهِ بِإِسْمِ الْأَعْظَمِ. One of the items or one of the things that is inherited by an Imam from another Imam is the Ismul A'zam. And ba'ad the wasiyah of Imam al-Husayn towards Imam al-Sajjad, through this wasiyah where Imam al-Sajjad was bestowed with the position of Imamah, is different than any other Imam. Because part of the inheritance of the Imam is that he receives the Mus'haf, Mushaf Fatima, the divine revelation or inscription where Jibreel would speak with Sayyidah Zahra and the Amir al-Mu'mineen would transcribe this conversation, is known as a Mushaf, is part of the inheritance which every Imam receives from the one before him. Together with this is the Jami', the tafsir of the Quran which Amir al-Mu'mineen wrote or compiled after the martyrdom of Rasulullah. Together with the inheritance is the sword of Dhul Fiqar. Together with the inheritance is the rings of the Anbiya, the ring of Sulaiman, Salamullah alayh, and the staff of Musa. These items Imam al-Husayn left behind as a trust with Salama in Medina. And how could the Imam have taken them to Karbala? When after the Asr of Ashura, when the Imam was martyred, they began to loot his possessions. They didn't even leave the amama on the head of Imam al-Husayn. What would they have done with the suhuf and the jami' and the rings of the Anbiya? For Imam al-Husayn left these possessions which are a part of the inheritance of Imam al-Sajjad with Salama, such that when Imam Zainul Abidin returns back to Medina, she gives them to him, lest the enemies destroy the heritage and the ilm that was passed on from one Imam to another. A part of the inheritance was left with Fatima al-Alila, the daughter of Imam al-Husayn, who was left behind in Medina. It has been the tradition of every Imam that when he gives the final wasiyah to the following Imam, he would tell the following Imam, convey my salams to my Shia. But Imam al-Husayn made an exception for Imam Zainul Abidin. He didn't leave this responsibility on Imam Zainul Abidin. He left this responsibility on his daughter Sukayna. You know how this salam of Imam al-Husayn reaches me and you? Alayka salam ya Aba Abdullah. Sukayna says that on the night after when my father was martyred, yani Laylatul Wahsha or Sham Ghariba, Sukayna says that I went running into the Maidan and I threw myself on the body of Imam al-Husayn from the manhar. Azizi, do you know what the manhar is? It's the part of the neck where the head was severed. Sukayna says from there I heard a voice of Imam al-Husayn saying, Bunayya Sukayna, ikra'i salami ila shi'ati. At that stage, Imam al-Husayn gave me and you salams. All of you, Ahibba is sitting over here. Takriman lil Imam al-Husayn. You have come here to honor Sayyid al-Shuhada. You have come here to honor Imam Sajjad. Because you stand with this amal, Imam al-Husayn gives you salams from Karbala. All of you who have eaten from the Mubarak Sufra of Imam Zainul Abidin, take your hawa'ij today and gain shafa'ah from Imam Zainul Abidin. Because to eat from the Sufra of Imam al-Sajjad is a sunnah that he himself initiated. It was the will of Imam al-Sajjad, because my father was killed hungry and thirsty. It is my responsibility that from now on, whoever comes to weep for my father, I will make sure that they never go home hungry and thirsty. For Imam Zainul Abidin and the manner in which he received the imamah, the responsibility and the bestowment of imamah, the wasiyah that was given to him, was an issue which was extremely private, an issue which was extremely secretive. Lest the Bani Umayyah do not kill Imam Sajjad for taking over this position. This is a position, tab'an, that is granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you see that even Imam Zainul Abidin, when he returned back to Medina, you do not find that Imam Zainul Abidin publicly declared that he is the successor of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And how could the Imam? Why would the Imam do this? It was neither in his maslihah nor in the maslihah of the ummah that he should publicize the fact that he is the Imam of the time. Imam Zainul Abidin describes the environment and the hostility of the environment to which he returned in one statement. He says, it is narrated that he said, ما بمكة والمدينة عشرون رجلا يحبنا أهل البيت. If you want to understand the surrounding and the circumstances, the type of people who lived in Hijaz during the time of Imam al-Husayn, you look at these words of Imam Zainul Abidin. He says that He says there isn't in Mecca or between Mecca and Medina, in the entire Hijaz, Mecca and Medina, Imam Sajjad says, there are not 20 people who love us, the Ahlul Bayt. In the entire Mecca and Medina, Imam could not find 20 people who had sympathy and love for the Ahlul Bayt. On what basis does Imam Zainul Abidin come out and declare the Imamah? For what reason should he declare a post of leadership when the ummah in itself is not ready or willing to take or follow his leadership, to adhere to his command? This on one side, ignorance of the ummah, cowardice from the ummah, disloyalty from the ummah on one side. On the other side, the reign of terror that came down upon the Islamic ummah through Bani Umayyah. When Imam returned back to Medina, before we speak about the reign of terror, is to show you the type of people and the quality of the people who lived in Medina when they were being oppressed by Bani Umayyah. There were those who lived in Medina during the time of Imam Sajjad and at the time of Imam al-Husayn, who didn't necessarily give bay'ah to Yazid. They did not support the Bani Umayyah. But the fact that they didn't support Bani Umayyah does not mean that they also accepted the wilayah and the authority of Ahlul Bayt. Some people are of the opinion, and this is a mistake in history, when they find any personality who didn't give bay'ah to Yazid, straight away they think that because he didn't give bay'ah to Yazid, this means he is together with Imam al-Husayn. La! The biggest example of this is Abdullah ibn Zubayr, enemy from the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. Person who stood together with Aisha on the day of Jamal and instigated the war against the Imam Zaman of their time in the Battle of Jamal, which caused the death of tens and tens and tens of thousands of Muslims. The same Abdullah ibn Zubayr didn't give bay'ah to Yazid. In fact, just as Imam al-Husayn left Medina to go towards Mecca, Abdullah ibn Zubayr also left towards Mecca. And when Imam al-Husayn came to Mecca, Ibn Zubayr could not stand the fact that Imam al-Husayn had an aura. He had a personality around which the people gravitated. He could not stand the fact that Imam Husayn has this popularity. He once told Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, I hate you people, the Ahlul Bayt, because every time I hear in the adhan, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, I see your family members smile. Is it not a fact of pride for the Ahlul Bayt, that their grandfather is mentioned in Adhan? He said, I couldn't stand that. Hatred in their heart. This Abdullah ibn Zubayr, when Imam al-Husayn was killed in Karbala, he refused to join hands with Imam al-Husayn. He stayed in Mecca. And when Imam Zainul Abidin came back, he was in Mecca and in Medina for a part of time. And he led a revolution against Yazid in Medina. In fact, he used the sacrifice and the martyrdom of Imam al-Husayn. To use the terminology of this day and age, he marketed the martyrdom of Imam al-Husayn such that he can go and gain support for his own leadership. These were the type of people who were there. If they could manipulate Karbala and extract a benefit for their own personal gains, they would do that. If I can gain leadership by publicizing the blood of Imam al-Husayn, let me ride on the backs of those shuhada and get the khilafah for myself. Did Ibn Zubayr not know that Imam Zainul Abidin was the most deserving of khilafah? He knew. Now look at the position of the ummah. You have less than 20 people in Hijaz who have empathy or sympathy or love for Imam Zainul Abidin. You have people who are being oppressed by Bani Umayyah. And then you have individuals such as Abdullah ibn Zubayr calling for revolutions on the name of Imam al-Husayn, leading people towards Jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir. Eventually, what was his end? He sought refuge in the Kaaba. The Kaaba was burnt down because of him when they stoned it with catapults filled with fire. Himself was killed and crucified outside of Mecca. He called the people towards batil, and together with this insistence, he caused the Mecca, the Kaaba, to be destroyed. On one hand, you have these type of people amongst the population, citizens of the Muslim Ummah of this caliber. And then you come to the ruling party itself. Islam has never witnessed such a reign of terror and violence and bloodshed before the coming of Bani Umayyah or the government of Yazid al-La'in. Never. This is not to say that the first four who had come before Yazid were more moral or more correct in their approach. La, they have an equal hand. They are the ones who set the foundation for Yazid to take the throne and shed the blood of Imam al-Husayn, for they are equal partners in crime. This is pointed out in Ziyarat Ashura. There's no need for explanation. Bani Umayyah, the army of Yazid that comes into Medina the year after the event of Karbala, when the people of Medina finally awoke due to the fiery and powerful khutbahs and majalis of the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Zainab al-Kubra. The people of Medina rise in revolution. They break their bay'ah and their allegiance with Yazid. They disperse his governor from Medina. Yazid returns back with an army under the command of Muslim ibn Aqaba, and they wreak havoc in Medina. The haram of Rasulullah was destroyed. Look at Tariq Tabari, not one of the Shi'as. He says when the army of Muslim ibn Aqaba came, they plundered and they demolished the city of Medina. The haram of Rasulullah, the Dhari Mubarak, was destroyed and made into a stable for the horses. The najasa that comes out from the horses, ajallakumullah, were dropping around the grave of Rasulullah. Read the history. How many people were killed inside of Masjid al-Nabawi? The historians say that when we walked into the masjid, this rawda, When we go to Masjid al-Nabawi, we all attempt to recite 2 rakat salat in the Rawda between the grave and the mimbar, because Rasulullah said this Rawda is from the Rawda of Jannah. This garden is from the gardens of Jannah. The historians say that at the time of Muslim ibn Aqaba, if a person was to walk into Masjid al-Nabawi, into the Rawda, he would find his feet covered in blood up till the ankles. How many people have been killed? Tabari himself says 10,000 people, Muslims in Medina, were killed. 700 of them from the Quraysh and the Ansar. After the event of Medina, there was not a single companion of Rasulullah who lived. All of them massacred under the hands of Muslim ibn Aqaba. How many women were dishonored? Tabari says that the following year in Medina, there were thousands and thousands of children. Ajallakumullah, and forgive my language. He says thousands and thousands of illegitimate children who were born. Children are being born, but nobody knows who their fathers are. This is a type of government that ruled in the name of Islam. They put a stain on the image of Islam, a stain that can never be cleaned. A stain that can never be cleansed, that can never be forgotten, no matter how hard they try. And this is where we come in, to show the entire world that the Islam of Ahlul Bayt is not the Islam of Bani Umayyah. This is what Imam Sajjad done from Medina. This dhulm, this violence and bloodshed was the general norm in the state, in the Islamic State. But the dhulm that was done on the Shi'as of Ali Muhammad cannot even be comprehended. All this during the lifetime of Imam Sajjad. Tusawwaru that the Imam, what he has seen during the first 40 days of his imamat, a person cannot comprehend. All these crimes are happening in his lifetime. Sheikh Mufid, to give you an idea, mentions one incident. One day, Hujjaj al-La'in decides, he's sitting in his palace together with his companions and his police or his force, whoever there are. Sheikh Mufid mentions this narration. Hujjaj al-La'in says to his companions, Urid an atakarrab, to paraphrase. These words are not wahifa, even if they are not accurate, but to paraphrase the statement, he says, Uridu an atakarrabu ila Allahi bi katli ashabi Abi Turab. Hujjaj says, I want to seek proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by killing the companions of Abu Turab. Abu Turab is who? Amir al-Mu'mineen. When they used to kill the Shi'as of Ali, they used to say, Qurbatan ilallah. And so, you know, on the day of Ashura, when Shimar al-La'in killed the Imam, there were 3 takbirs that he recited. History repeats itself. In the land of Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra and Sayyida Ruqayya today, do you not see the rebirth of the same Bani Umayyah, the same images that flash across the entire media of beheadings carried out in the name of Islam, takbir before the jugular veins are cut? Which Islam is this? The Islam of Bani Umayyah. History repeats itself. Our responsibility is bara'ah from them. We have nothing to do with them. They have nothing to do with Islam. And it becomes our utmost, perhaps the most important duty in the ghaibah of the 12th Imam, that we employ every possible method through the media in a non-violent, peaceful manner to disassociate Islam from najis people like these. An animal doesn't deal with an animal in the way that Bani Umayyah dealt with the people. Hujjaj says, Uridu an atakarrabu ila Allah bi katli ashabi Abi Turab. I want to gain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by killing the companions of Abu Turab. So one of the companions who is there from the police force of Hujjaj, he says to Hujjaj, well, there is no better companion that we can find other than Kambar, because he spent his entire life in the servitude of Abu Turab. They used to call Amir al-Mu'mineen Abu Turab. This is a title that was given to him by Rasulullah. They thought this is a title that is degrading. Abu Turab, the father of sand. They don't know the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the day of judgment, when the people will be raised from their graves, they would say, Ya laytani kuntu turaban. Yani the hadith of the sixth Imam says, the people would say, Ya laytani kuntu turaban. Yani ya layt, we wish that we were from the people of Abu Turab. Ala kullin. Hujjaj goes and they send out an army and they send out a police force to go and arrest Kambar. Kambar is arrested and is brought to Hujjaj. Hujjaj tells him, wasn't Ali ibn, are you not the slave of Ali? Kambar says to him, I am the slave of my Lord. Allah is my master and Ali is the successor or the representative of that master. Hujjaj's blood begins to boil. He says to Kambar, I demand that you distance yourself and that you curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. You move away from the path or the manhaj of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Kambar looks at Hujjaj and he says, can you find me the path of a person better than Ali ibn Abi Talib? You can find me a substitute to Ali ibn Abi Talib such that I can follow? Hujjaj is overcome by anger and he tells Kambar, how do you want to die? Tell me how you want me to kill you, so I will kill you in that way. Do you want me to chop your head? Do you want me to throw you from on top of a building? Do you want to be shot with an arrow? How do you want to be killed? Do you want to be crucified? Tell me how you want to be killed. Look at the tactics of Hujjaj. Kambar says to him, kill me the way you want. You choose the way. You choose which manner you want to kill me. Hujjaj is taken back. He says, why? Kambar tells him, the same way that you kill me on the day of judgment, you will be killed in the same way. For the punishment that you choose for me is the punishment that will come upon you. The traditions tell us, Sheikh Mufid says, فَذُبِحَ يعني Kambar كَمَا تُذْبَحْ شَاتٍ. Kambar was slaughtered in the way that a sheep is slaughtered. Hatam Shaifin, during the days of Hajj or outside of Hajj, I don't want to get into the details. Until you have seen how a sheep is slaughtered, the limbs are bound together and you have somebody hold the head together such that the blade can go on the neck. This is how Kambar was sacrificed in the way of Amir al-Mu'mineen. These are the gruesome, violent times that Imam al-Sajjad lived in. The Islamic Ummah had become a dark, God-forsaken pit of doom, where savages and beasts were unleashed. All this because the people refused to support Sayyid al-Shahadat in Karbala. And it is in this environment that Imam al-Sajjad began to reform the Ummah and undertake the responsibilities of divine leadership. In a very subtle way, how do you think Imam would have performed his job? Number one, Sahifa al-Sajjadiyah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sahifa Sajjadiyah, brothers and sisters, as we said last night, do not look at Sahifa Sajjadiyah as a book of ordinary du'as. Imam Zainul Abidin, through Sahifa Sajjadiyah, introduced tabligh to the entire world in the form of du'as. There was no need to go out and give khutbahs. There was no need to go out and give sermons or lessons or debates, keeping in mind the environment that was there. For the most eloquent way to revive the ummah was through the form of dua. To read Sahifa Sajjadiyya, it is a treasure in aqaid. A person wants to correct his aqidah, a person wants to have the right ma'rifah of Allah and His Rasul, read Sahifa Sajjadiyya. You want to see all the negative qualities and characteristics that existed in the society during the time of Imam Zainul Abidin, read Sahifa Sajjadiyya, like we said yesterday. You want to survive the turbulence and the dhulm of the tyrants, read Sahifa Sajjadiyya. If you want to revive your conscience, if you want to revive the voice of guilt inside your heart, such that you can come back to the right path, read Sahifa Sajjadiyya in the darkness of the night. And you see how the light of wilayah shines on your face. Sahifa Sajjadiyya, tabligh through dua. The number 2, Imam Zainul Abidin implemented a strategy for economic upliftment of the Muslim ummah, and the Shias in particular. When we read history, we need to read it in a very analytical manner. You read in the traditions that Imam Zainul Abidin would go out in the darkness of the nights in Medina carrying bags of food on his back, sacks of rice, and distribute them to the impoverished people, the people who are subdued in poverty, who are living below what would be seen even at that time, the poverty line. Imam Sajjad goes and distributes food to them. Why? To show the entire ummah, to show the people that a part of Islamic leadership is to uplift the economic status of your own people. So long as these people are hungry, they become majboor. It is people who are weak in their faith, people whose livelihood has been constricted to such a level they are pushed to the wall. They don't know what to do. They can sell their faith for a livelihood. They can sell their children for livelihood. For Imam Sajjad taught us, do not let the poor people from within the ummah fall to this level. Take the initiative to improve their well-being. Take the initiative to uplift their economic status such that they do not become majboor. They do not have to raise their hands out to a zalim. In Iraq, forgive me if tonight's majlis goes a little over time. Inshallah, this is the night of Imam Zainul Abidin. It is a weekend night, and inshallah your hajat are all kabul, inshallah. Do you know in Iraq, over the last few years, there was a report that was published in regards to suicide bombers and what motivates them to go out and take the lives of other people. You have a number of different types of people who go out and conduct such bombings. You have those from the nawasib, pure hatred, brainwashed, one side. The other side, which is more worrying. They found a person who was ready to kill himself and kill the zawar of Imam al-Husein. Luckily, the authorities were able to catch him and to contain him and neutralize the vest which he was wearing. They asked him, what made you come to this level? What is it about the Shias that you hate so much, such that you are willing to kill yourself and thousands of people around you? What happened to your humanity? How did you get to this stage? You know what the person said? He was neither from the Nawasib nor from the Khawarij. He says, hunger. I live with my wife and my 5 children. We do not have a piece of bread to eat on any given night. So the Nasibi comes to me and he tells me, Inta, so long as you are alive and the situation is like this, you will see each one of your 5 children die in front of you out of hunger. He says, my children, all of them below the age of 6 or 7. So these people who take advantage from the Nawasib and the Khawarij, who exploit the less well off, he says, they come to me and they tell me, if you remain alive, you have no job, the economy is shattered, your children will die in front of you. Enter, you will bury your own children. So how about we give you an X amount of dollars? Let your wife and let your children live a good life. Let them take this $5,000 or $6,000. Let them build a life for themselves. Enter, take this task, you go to Jannah, and your wife and kids will live in happiness. Miskeen, what he will do? This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen used to say, Al-Faqr Ra'sul Kufr. Poverty is the head of Kufr. What are we doing if we call ourselves the Shias of Imam Zainul Abidin? The impoverished, the less well off from the Shia Ummah, whether it is in Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or Pakistan or India, locally at home. What are we doing to raise their level of living, their standard of living? I say I love Imam Sajjad, but this is what Imam Sajjad did for the community. He raised their economics level. What am I doing? Point of contemplation. Sahifa Sajjadiyya, economic upliftment. The third form of tabligh, to soften the hearts of the people. For 35 years, Imam Zainul Abidin, there was not a single day of his life that passed except that he wept over the tragedy of Sayyid al-Shahadat. To the extent that once the narration tells us he was walking in the market and passed by the section of the butchers, and they had put out their sheep and were about to slaughter the sheep, Imam al-Sajjad cries and says, wait! To the butcher, he says, wait! Have you fed them water? Do you not know it is from the Sharia that the animals should be fed water before they are slaughtered? The butchers stand up together, they say to Imam Zainul Abidin, Yabna Rasulullah, we are Muslims. He says, we are Muslims. How can we slaughter these animals without feeding them water? Imam Zainul Abidin would stand in the middle of the market and would begin to weep and would say, how madhloom is the grandson of Rasulullah. The beasts are fed with water, but my father was killed thirsty. 35 years that he lived after Karbala, every single day he wept for Sayyid al-Shuhada. And our 12th Imam, Sahib al-Amri wal-Zaman, says the same thing. He follows in the footsteps of Imam Zainul Abidin. The 12th Imam walks in the footsteps of Imam Zainul Abidin. Just like the way Imam Zainul Abidin wept over the tragedy of Imam al-Husein for his entire life, our 12th Imam says the same thing in Ziyarat al-Nahiyah. He looks at addressing Imam al-Husayn. He says to his grandfather, because I was separated from you by the passage of time, and I was not able to fight alongside you and be an enemy who was an enemy towards you. What does the Imam say? Allah, Allah, ya Shia, this is the grief of your 12th Imam. He says to Imam al-Husayn, فَلَأَنْدُبَنَّكَ صَبَاحًا وَمَسَاءً وَلَأَبْكِيَنَّ لَكَ بَدَلَ الدُّمُوعِ دَمًا حَسْرَةً عَلَيْكَ وَتَأَسُّفًا عَلَى مَا دَهَاكَ وَتَلَحُّفًا. Imam Sahib al-Amr goes on to say, حَتَّى أَمُوتَ حَتَّى أَمُوتَ بِلَوْعَةِ الْمُصَابِ وَغُصَّةِ الْإِكْتِيَابِ. Our 12th Imam in Ziyarat al-Nahiyah, he looks at Imam al-Husayn and he says to him, because I was separated from you by the passage of time and I was not able to fight alongside you, I will lament you every morning and every night. Imam al-Zamana says to Imam al-Husayn, I shall weep for you tears of blood because of my anguish and my pain for you. Till when will the grief of Imam Sahib al-Amr continue? He says in Ziyarat al-Nahiyah, he says, Hatta Amut. Imam Sahib al-Amr says, I will weep for you, Imam al-Husayn, until I die. What is the pain that is in the heart of Imam al-Zamana? The pain in the heart of Imam Sahib al-Amr is the same pain in the heart of Imam al-Sajjad. He says, حَتَّى أَمُوتُ بِلَوْعَةِ الْمُصَابِ وَغُصَّةِ الْإِكْتِيَابِ. Imam Sahib al-Amr says, I will weep for you and I will die because of the anguish that Karbala has caused in my heart. Imam Sahib al-Amr says to Imam al-Husayn, the way in which you were killed, I am choking with grief. Grief of Imam Sahib al-Amr is the grief of Imam al-Sajjad. His entire life he wept for Imam al-Husayn. A tradition tells us that a person asked him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what was the most difficult part of your tragedy? Imam Sajjad didn't say Imam Husayn. Imam Sajjad didn't say the two arms of Abu al-Fadl. Imam Sajjad didn't say the body of Ali ibn al-Asghar. Ahibba'i, you want to see the grief of Imam al-Sajjad? As'alukum bil-haq. I ask you by Allah, each and every one of you sitting over here is a respectful person, a person of dignity, a person of ghira, somebody who has honor, a person who feels that he should defend his women. I'm talking to you people. Allah, you tell me, alaykum bil haq. If you were to stand in the market tomorrow and somebody was to slap your wife, Allah, by haq, if you were standing in the market and somebody was to slap your daughter, Imam al-Sajjad's sisters and daughters and aunts and mothers were whipped in front of him. Allah, which man will take this? And how would Imam defend them? If he wanted to defend them, his hands were tied by shackles. أعظم الله أجوركم مصيبة استشهاد Imam al-Sajjad. Tonight is a night of musibah for the Shias of Ali Muhammad. Imam lived these 35 years in grief until the final day where the La'in Walid ibn Abdul Malik decided to poison Imam al-Sajjad. The traditions tell us that the intensity of the poison was such that the color of the Imam's body changed, and between the time that from the time that the pangs of the poison began to overcome his body and up till the time he took his last breath, Imam al-Sajjad lost consciousness 3 times. On his deathbed, he lay next to Imam al-Baqir, and he said to his son, he gave him his final wasiyah. He appointed Imam al-Baqir as the designated Imam of the Shias after him, and gave him all the parts of the inheritance. Allah, there is a hadith from Imam al-Sadiq that says part of the inheritance which every one of the Imam receives from the other is the wood. Allah is firewood. The narrator asks, what is this firewood? Imam al-Sadiq says, this is the remains of the door of my mother Zahra. Allah, don't forget Sayyidah Zahra in your musibah, huh? For Imam al-Sajjad gives all of this, a part of this inheritance to Imam al-Baqir. And he gives him part of his advice. Imam al-Sajjad looks at Imam al-Baqir and he tells him, Bunayya. Imam Sajjad is giving his final advice to Imam al-Baqir. Shias of Imam Sajjad, this is an advice that the Imam gives. Imam al-Sajjad looks at Imam al-Baqir and he says to him, Bunayya, Abu Ja'far, Undur fi khamsatan. Imam Sajjad's final words to his son Imam Baqir. He says, Undur fi khamsatan, or Undur ila khamsatan. لا تصاحبهم ولا تحادثهم ولا ترافقهم على طريق أبدا. Imam Sajjad tells Imam al-Baqir, you can envision in your mind that this is Imam Sajjad on his deathbed. Imam Baqir is sitting next to him. Madinah al-Munawwara. Imam Sajjad tells Imam al-Baqir, my final advice to you is that stay away from 5 people in your life. 5 people, never be friends with them, never accompany them, never associate yourselves with them. Imam al-Baqir says, oh father, who are these 5 people? Imam al-Baqir or Imam al-Sajjad replies back by saying, Iyaka wa musahabatil kadhab. Imam Sajjad tells his son, oh my son Muhammad, yani Abu Ja'far, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, he says, oh my son, never associate with a liar. Allah, kadhab, liar, huh? It says, never associate yourself with a liar, because he will give you the wrong impression of things. If something is easy, he will make it seem hard. If a certain issue is hard, he will make it easy. You can never trust a liar. He says to him, Iyaka wa musahabatil kadhab. The second person. Imam al-Baqir asks, who is the second person? Imam Sajjad says to him, Iyaka wa musahabatil fasik. Do not ever be associate, or my son Baqir, do not associate yourself with a disobedient person. For indeed the disobedient person, he will sell you out for a morsel of food or less. They are untrustworthy. Imam al-Sajjad goes on to say, Bunayya Muhammad, Iyaka wa musahabatil bakhil. He says, do not associate yourself with a miser, because the miser, when you are in need, he will never lend you anything from his property. Bunayya Muhammad, Iyaka wa musahabatil qati'lir rahim. He says to him, O my son Imam, or my son Muhammad, do not associate yourself with a person who cuts off the sila raham, who doesn't take care of his family, because I have found them to be cursed in the book of Allah. Imam says, who is the 5th person? Imam Sajjad says, Iyaka wa musahabatil ahmak. He says, do not associate yourself with a foolish person, because the foolish person will advise you in such a way that if he wants benefit for you, he will will end up harming you. Oh my son Muhammad, do not associate yourself with these 5 people. The tradition tells us that when Imam al-Sajjad completed this wasiyah, he fainted because of the intensity of the poison. Allah, Allah. The tradition tells us that Imam Sajjad fainted, and when he regained his consciousness, one of the times that Imam Sajjad regained his consciousness, the tradition tells us that Imam Sajjad saw Imam al-Baqir sitting on his chest, or sitting by his chest weeping. Imam al-Baqir's head was on the chest of Imam Zainul Abidin while he was weeping. Allah, Allah, my khitab now is towards Imam Zainul Abidin. And my aqidah is that Imam Zainul Abidin from Jannatul Baqi can hear us and see us in this Majlis Mubarak. Inshallah, through Imam al-Sajjad, all your hajat are accepted. Forgive me, but Maulana Imam Zainul Abidin, I say to you, how fortunate you are that at the last time of your life, you have a person as noble as Imam al-Baqir on your chest. But Imam Sajjad, tell me, who was on the chest of your father Husein when he was dying? The traditions tell us that on the day of Ashura, Shumar came, Shumar al-La'in came, holding a khanjar on his hand, he kicked the chest of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Allah, Allah, Imam Zainul Abidin, how lucky, how fortunate are you that your women are crying for you. But who was crying for your father Husein in Karbala? Imam al-Sajjad, when he gains consciousness, he tells his son Imam al-Baqir, Ya Abu Ja'far, when I die, I want you to give me the ghusl and the hunut and the kafan, because only a Masoom Imam can bury another Masoom Imam. Allah, Allah, Maulana Imam Sajjad in Jannatul Baqi, how fortunate are you that Imam al-Baqir will give you a ghusl and a kafan. Allah, Allah, the tradition tells us that when Imam al-Baqir began to put the hunut on the body of Imam al-Sajjad, he began to cry because he saw the marks of the shields and the marks of the ropes that were tied on the hands of Imam Sajjad. I say to you, Maulana Imam Zainul Abidin, how fortunate are you that Imam al-Baqir gave you hunut. Allah, Allah, the Madhloom Imam of Karbala. How could you even give a hunut to Imam al-Husayn? The body is in Karbala, but the head is in Sham. The traditions tell us that Imam al-Sajjad looked at Imam al-Baqir for the last time and he began to cry. At the time that Imam began to breathe his last, the narration tells us that the nur and the light on the face of Imam al-Sajjad began to increase as if it was a light that was going up towards the heaven. The tradition tells us that the last thing that happened is that Imam Sajjad looked at Imam al-Baqir. His tears began to flow down his eyes. Imam al-Sajjad took his last breath. As he took his last breath, he straightened his hands. He straightened his legs. He closed his eyes and his ruh went up towards the heaven. The traditions mention Imam al-Baqir began to weep. فَلَتَمَ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ وَنَادَى وَإِمَامًا وَسَجَّادًا. Imam al-Baqir began to hit his face and began to cry. Oh Imam Sajjad, wa Imama. مات بحسين.